Notts County talk back for the final Euros preview of the tournament, and it is England against Italy in the final. Delighted for this preview to be joined by Colin and Holly. Now, they've joined us throughout the tournament for various games. But honestly, we'll start with you, Holly. Did you expect at the start of the tournament England to be in the final?
I was hopeful and I thought we had a good squad, but I feel like with England, you never really kind of expect it. Like, it's always kind of like a nice thing to say. You have the belief in them, but realistically, I didn't expect it at all. But it's such a nice surprise, like to actually see England in a final for something for once.
Yeah, it's crazy. Colin, we spoke before the tournament started, and if I remember right, Italy were your team, weren't they, to watch?
They were, yeah. And I think what you're looking at is actually two sides who've both had to address massive issues with the national game. You know, I think they've looked at the academy system in England, and Howard Wilkinson did an awful lot of fantastic work with that. Obviously, with the Notts links, we should all be very proud of that. But also, Italy have had to do the same. You know, it used to be a league where you would have your world superstars playing at 31, 32, 33, seeing out their careers. But actually, what you've got with an Italian side that have had to trust, you know, their young domestic talent, and you've got clubs like AC Milan and Inter and Juventus, obviously, but you've got the smaller clubs as well who are producing talent. So you've got two clubs and two nations who've worked incredibly hard to get there. So I think that's quite a nice thing to see, really.
Yeah, before we go on to you, George, did anyone see, I don't know if it's Greg Dyke, the video from 2010 setting out England's plans for the next so many years? It might have been later than 2010, but he said, I've literally just watched it before he came on. He said, by 2020, we want to be reaching the semi-finals of the Euros. And by 2022, we want to win the World Cup. And people were laughing at him for that. But look where we are now. It's what you're saying, Colin. Now we've had to address it. They would have known from the under-17s the talent coming through. And the squad we've got at the minute, I'll let you talk about that, George, because we were just talking about the bench, weren't we? The squad's insane.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, Italy have a very good side, but when you look at the game at Denmark, and you know we needed a goal, and you're putting Grealish on, who's been amazing in the games that he's come on, and then you got Foden as well, who's just not world class, but he will get there. He will definitely get there. To have options like that on your bench, and that's just the players that came on. Obviously, you've got players that can change the dynamic of your squad as well, like Bellingham. Like when Henderson came on, I thought he shored it up a lot, and just to have those options on the bench, because these are all like. Look at Henderson, he's a leader. And I've read a lot about Cody as well, what he's been doing. He's almost like a leader off the pitch. And he's not had a sniff of game time. So I think, and Southgate's addressed it himself as well, saying that the way everyone is off the pitch, the togetherness, it's unmatched. So as good as the squad are, I think to have that sort of positive group that actually like each other, I think that's obviously been England's problem, hasn't it, over the years. I think it's very, very good for us, and it's showing, isn't it?
It is. It really is. So before we look ahead to Italy, we'll go back to obviously the game on Wednesday night against Denmark. I just like to say I predicted a 2-1. I think so. I got that right. It's like my first correct score ever on any preview. The first goal went in. I wasn't out. I was at home. I think you were at home, Colin. George and Ollie, what was the atmosphere like in town when that first goal goes in?
Go on, Holly, I'll let you answer on.
It was kind of like, it was a bit subdued and the kind of energy went a bit flat, but as soon as it kind of went in, it was a bit like being at Notts, you know, if Notts ever concede, then everyone gets kind of back behind them. Like, I know, obviously the England team couldn't hear everyone in the bar in Nottingham, but it was that kind of energy, like, it wasn't like, oh, that's it now, like, we're going to lose. It was kind of like, doesn't matter, like dust it down, kind of get going again, and we can win this. Like, it's in our grasp to win it. Like, it kind of felt like we were very much all over Denmark for quite a long period of time in that game. So to concede first, it was kind of nice to see how England would react to that, because obviously we haven't conceded. So it was interesting to see if Southgate would change anything, or if the tempo or flow of the game would change. But no, I think everyone just kind of had belief that England wouldn't lose even if they conceded.
I had a feeling that free kick was going to go in. I don't know why. It's easy to say after it's gone in.
Yeah.
But I'm a big superstitious and all that. That's when the commentator's saying there's been no direct free kick scored at a tournament, and suddenly Denmark have a direct free kick. It just feels like fate to me. I feared that if England didn't get back before half time, they would shut up shop, and that was for
Yeah.
me was the most important thing to get that
Yeah,
goal.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, to sort of go on to what Holly was saying as well, like when that goal went in, yeah, I just had like, you know, like your wounds feel like they're opening again from the World Cup, and it's like, oh, it's typical England. And I think as Notts fans we can say as well, it's very typical of something Notts to do as well, isn't it? But and then you're sort of assured then because you think we've got the quality here, we've got players that have done it, you know, at a very high level, the highest of levels really. So you're thinking if they can't turn this around, then there's obviously a bigger issue. But yeah, it was almost like we sort of got behind them, and the belief was there, which, you know, for years I don't think it has been. And one thing I'd like to mention as well is how much Southgate, I've changed my opinion on Southgate, because I after that Scotland game, I was just thinking like, what an awful result. You know, there was such a lackluster performance.
Can't say what you messaged me. I can't.
Yeah,
I actually can't say it.
Don't say it. Yeah, don't say it. Yeah, and it's not just me either. There's a lot of people whose opinion has changed, and fair play to him. You know, he doesn't fall well to criticism. Like everyone's criticizing him, and he doesn't sort of fall into the trap of doing what people are saying. He does his own things. It's like even playing Sterling. I was thinking Sterling's had an awful season, and then look at he's pretty much pulled us through it. You know, not on his own, but he's been a pivotal point, hasn't he, for England? So yeah, just can't speak highly enough of Southgate now. I want to apologise to him publicly.
Yeah, I think he'll be watching.
Definitely.
Colin, we then go straight back on the front foot. Sterling, great chance, and Schmeichel saves it. At that point, did you think? I had the feeling, I don't know if you did, that he was going to have a worldie game like he did in the FA Cup final for Leicester.
Yeah, well, I must admit, I mean, we've seen it as Notts fans, haven't we, as well? And I think I always anticipated, like everybody else did, you know, that he was going to be instrumental in this, and it looked like it was going that way as well. Going back to what we were saying as well about that kind of familiar sinking feeling, I don't know if anybody else had that kind of flashback with Sterling on the back post, that kind of Gaza Euro 96 moment as well, where Sterling didn't throw himself at it, but it was one of those kind of things. Thought, oh, is this an omen? You know what I mean? And so I was delighted, really, that Sterling became so instrumental in it, in almost to kind of heal those wounds and those kind of flashbacks of that particular moment. But yeah, I mean, Schmeichel, an absolute sort of man mountain, and I'm sort of just about old enough to remember his dad's performances in the Euros in '92, and he essentially led them through it. You know, and so you kind of almost saw Kasper in that kind of same mold, and credit to him, he almost did it, didn't he? You know, he almost did it himself. So yeah, I mean, I must have been delighted from an England perspective, but also there was a great sense of pride as a Notts fan as well to see Kasper pull out the bag as well as he did.
Yeah, he's a fantastic player. Like, I think this season especially, he's highlighted just how good he actually is. Like, he's so much better than people even give him credit for, I think.
The thing with Schmeichel as well, he's just a good human being, isn't he? Like, he's just, as much as England fans probably hated him because of what he said about has it ever come home and that, you know, it's just a bit of hearsay, and he's just having a bit of banter, I think. But you know, you look. He went up to Southgate, then he shook his hand and sort of congratulated him after full time, and you're thinking he's just a class bloke, isn't he? And yeah, when he saved that penalty, that half a second, you're thinking he's going to do it, but no, luckily he didn't.
Yeah, obviously England then get the goal. For me, the best part of that goal was the ball from Kane. That was unbelievable. To pick out Saka, and we said on our preview before, we want Grealish in ahead of Saka. I don't think Grealish would have made that run that Saka made. Obviously, the game would have been completely different had he started. But that's what Saka offers you. He's actually lightning fast, isn't he? And to make that run, and at that point, it's either the defender leaves the ball or Sterling taps it in. It's simple as that. So, you know, from that perspective, for England to get the goal before half time was amazing. Second half, I don't really know how to assess the second half because I can't really remember it, if I'm honest. I only remember extra time.
Yeah.
I don't remember like an unbelievable chance from any side in the second half.
I think it was more just domination, wasn't it? You know what I mean? In terms of, and you felt the momentum going with England. So you're just waiting for it to happen. And it took a long time. It was incredibly draining because, you know, chance after chance was going, or set piece was going, corners were being cleared, those sort of things. But I have to say in the second half, you know, once obviously we've got the equaliser, and I just felt that it was England's game to win. And particularly, you know, the amount of times the Danes were hitting the deck in terms of, and it wasn't. I don't think it was all gamesmanship in terms of winding down the clock. They were genuinely exhausted. You know, they'd had a really sort of tough tournament, both physically and emotionally, and you could see that England just had that extra gear, and it was really just waiting for that to happen. And like I say, just delighted that it did.
Yeah, let's go on to the penalty then. Raise your hand if you think it was a penalty. I really do think it was a penalty.
I think, like I say, I would say, it's totally down onto perspective, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? If that was against Notts, I would be going absolutely apoplectic. But you know, in terms of it was written, wasn't it? It was just like going back to what I was saying about the momentum of the game. You know, it had to happen because of the amount of chances that was going through there and kind of the flow and the momentum. I'll throw this in there that I think had that been on a neutral ground without the kind of fans and stuff, I think it would have been a harder decision for the ref to make. But at the same time, you know, there was contact. You can't deny that there was obviously contact in the box, and you know, we're playing a game now where it comes down to the finest of margins, doesn't it? And we've got computer technology to allow us to see those finest margins. So, you know, it was a penalty, and I'm glad that we got it.
Holly, with your centre back hat on, if you conceded that in a semi-final, would you still be saying it's a penalty?
I think if it was just me personally and there wasn't another player involved, like because there was two players who kind of caused the contact with him, then I'd find it quite hard done by. But it was the fact that he kind of got clipped on his leg and then he got kind of clipped on his hip as well, and it was that kind of double contact. It may not be enough, but it was enough to off balance him. And I think as a defender in that situation, any player obviously like Sterling or that kind of ability running at you, you're very kind of like not naive, but you don't get kind of that. You kind of stand them up and you block off their areas, and you don't kind of cut off their path to run at, because he didn't dive, but some players do, and some players are clever like that to make it more of what it is. So I think the way they kind of tried to stop his run and his flow was just kind of calling for a penalty, because he was just kind of weaving in them and they kind of just cut him off at both ends, and it was just bound to happen. As soon as he got into that box at that angle, it was inevitable.
What I don't think there's enough appreciation for sometimes, we see it when we go to watch Notts, some of the players, you know, the quicker players, we don't appreciate just how athletic and quick players move. And it does take less to knock, I'm not saying in this case, but it does take less to knock you off balance or to cause you to go down when you're running at however fast these players run. But yeah, I think just about a penalty, but I agree, Colin. If it was against England, I'd be absolutely fuming. I think it's funny what it's made the rest of Europe do. Papers saying that, has anyone seen the headlines saying that we got it because UEFA were happy with Boris stopping the Super League and things like this? Just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
I'll take it though. Whatever it is, I'll take it.
It is England against Europe. It feels like it on Sunday, doesn't it?
Yeah, I love it.
I think the Euros is full of this though, isn't it? I mean, like I say, going back to Denmark's win, they were there on a fluke occurrence because Yugoslavia, as it was then, burst into war and conflict. You know, Greece as well, you know, had success, you know, based on that as well, that was unexpected. So this is sort of common in the Euros, this kind of, you know, suggestions of political bias or they don't deserve it or whatever. But you know, we've waited a long time as England fans to experience some success, so we'll take it in whatever form it comes.
Yeah, definitely. Should we talk about the Kane goal then, George? Because I don't think you'll mind me saying you started crying, didn't you, when Kane scored?
No, I didn't. I was close, but I didn't. It was there. There were definitely tears in the eyes, but no, I didn't cry. Yeah, it was that, like, you're never probably going to get a moment like that again in football where it's all ripped away from you and then it's given back to you within half a second. Because obviously he misses, doesn't he, the penalty, and then he taps it in. I'd say Schmeichel was kicking himself though, wasn't he?
Yeah, every time I watch the replay,
he can do better.
I feel like he's still going to claim the ball because it's not hard. It's not a hard one. It's really not.
It's a very un-Kane-esque penalty, wasn't it? He normally roofs them, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah,
he does. But you know, from that moment, there was no chance England were conceding again, which I found extremely positive.
Yeah, just another point as well. Like, I think it was about 6 or 7 minutes left when we was pinging it around everywhere. Have you seen that little clip that BBC put out where they like fast forwarded it?
50 passes.
50, wasn't it 53?
Yeah, wasted three
It was
3 minutes,
50
wasn't it?
plus.
Literally though, like unbelievable passing. Like we opened them up about 3 or 4. I know they're obviously chasing the ball down, and you do open gaps up like that. But if we were chasing a goal, you're thinking we could have had 3 or 4 chances on goal. It's just the passing accuracy was unbelievable.
The game management was incredible.
Mm.
You look back to how even we've evolved from 2 years ago. If you look at the Colombia game, when we look set to be going through against Colombia and we panic, give away a corner and they score. Luckily, we get through on penalties. But just how we've evolved in the Southgate in a few years. That's the most comfortable finish to a semi-final that's gone to extra time you'll ever see. I felt like the final whistle was an anti-climax because I knew we'd won from like the 27th minute onwards. We were absolutely dominant. They were out on their feet, as I think you mentioned earlier, Colin. They were absolutely done. But at the same time, to have them chasing the ball at that point with that much confidence, it is impressive, and it gives me hope for the game on Sunday. We'll go through a few questions we've got. Danny says he's a bit fearful of Insigne and Chiesa. Insigne scares me the most, I think.
I think that Chiesa is very good. His finishing ability is like he can finesse a ball, can't he? That guy.
Insigne
though, I don't know. He seems to.
He's Grealish, isn't he? He's the Italian Grealish, isn't he? Essentially,
yeah.
He's one of those players who just wants the ball and he'll go direct and he'll run at you. And I suppose you're looking at it from a biased England perspective. If you've been training with Jack Grealish every day for the last couple of weeks, do you know what I mean? You're probably as prepared as you can be to play against a player like that, because that's how you prepare for it. Is that you want to be looking for those kind of step overs, you know what I mean, and those twists and cutting inside, cutting outside. You're going to be working against it, and so yeah, I mean, fascinating player, lovely player to watch. But like I say, I'm hopeful that England have got enough expertise in dealing with a player like that because they've got one in their squad themselves.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
I think you've just got to look as well at the form of our defensive players. Like Rice and Phillips, their partnership's very good. Our fullbacks are just on fire. Like Shaw and
Walker.
They put the ball through, didn't they? And he's absolutely pelted towards goal and somehow retrieved the ball. His pace is unbelievable.
And he reads the game well, because you can be fast and not be in that position as well.
That's what I mean. So I understand the fear of Insigne and Chiesa, but I do feel like we've got the players to sort of counter the way that they play.
Yeah.
The one thing that I would say, just looking at the stats and stuff, I'll do this bit with Rich not being here. I'll do the stats and the data, but they've scored 3 goals from outside the box where England haven't scored any, and I think this is where we'll understand the importance of the kind of the defensive roles, and like particularly kind of Phillips and Rice if he goes with those 2 players, because they're going to have to really sort of marshal outside the box and keep their discipline, because there are a lot of threats lurking in and around those areas that they're going to have to be alert for. But like I say, going back to Walker was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think it was in extra time, he ended up on the left-hand side of midfield. He cut diagonally across the pitch in order to close a player down, retain the ball and stuff. And, thinking about it, if you're one of those sort of players that on that pitch with a few minutes to go, that's what you want to see. You want to see someone who's still got the kind of physique and the legs to do that, because it gives everybody a lift going forward. And like I say, I think he was a standout player out of a team of standout players on the semi-final, certainly.
Mm. Yeah, you said about them scoring outside the box, and Sydney actually scored one, didn't he, against Belgium from outside the box, which was an incredible finish. And that's beating a very good keeper. Another question comment from Mark thinks that Italy have been better attacking-wise than England. And we're really going to see, because we've controlled possession around the halfway line. But he doesn't think we'd create enough opportunities. What do you think, Holly? Do you like the style we're playing? It's obviously working.
I feel like the style of play can often be criticised, because when we do have it, we don't push to go forward as often as people think, because we do like to keep the ball and we do like to move it around the back. But you're only going to score if you have possession. That's obvious. So you do need to keep the ball and you do need to maintain it well around the halfway line. And if you've got the ball and you're in possession, then like we did with Denmark, you're just going to wear the other team out. They're going to be chasing the ball down. They're going to have to drag themselves out of shape to even win the ball back. And I think England are quite kind of composed in that essence, where they can keep the ball and not panic and sling it forward, which I think a lot of teams kind of fall foul to. So I think it'll be quite like maybe more like a kind of chess game, like a stalemate of who makes the first move. And I feel like England are that well drilled and organised that I don't think they'll panic if they've not had as many opportunities that they usually have. So I think it'll be interesting with the Italians obviously attacking nature compared to kind of like our composed, organised, maintained possession sort of play. I think it might counteract each other and kind of make for more of an interesting second half.
Yeah, definitely. What I like about how we're playing at the minute, I don't know if anyone else is enjoying this or notices, the way we'll play the ball, and as soon as a gap opens up, it'll be Maguire or Stones that then push forward. And then all of a sudden they drag players towards them, and then we can start passing out to the wings. Because Shaw, you've already said, George, Shaw has been unbelievable for me. Apart from Sterling, who's got to be England's player of the tournament, Luke Shaw's my second choice because he hadn't played the full minutes by the time we played Germany or something. He'd already created the most chances. I just think the way he's come on from the comments made by Mourinho, class. Final question. We'll let you go for this one first, George. Who will Italy rather face, Saka or Sancho? So,
I don't know. I don't think they'd rather face either, to be honest. But I think they'd find it more difficult to deal with Saka because I think he offers a little bit more defensively, and like you've sort of alluded to earlier, he does make those sort of runs that sort of go a little bit unnoticed. So he can be a bit of a handful. But as can Sancho. Yeah, difficult question. What would you say? I don't know.
I would say Saka because they're both young, but Saka seems to have such an unpredictability about him. He just does whatever he feels like, doesn't he? He's more of a raw talent than Sancho, and I think sometimes you need that in a big game like this. What do you think, Colin? Saka or Sancho?
For me, it's about crossing ability. One of the things I think that stands out for me is we've scored 5 headed goals in this tournament. And so it's really about the player who can put the ball into the box. Now, I think both of them have got a great cross, but I think Saka's probably the more natural choice of being able to do that. They're probably slightly more natural winger, whereas you'd expect Sancho to probably cut inside from time to time and do those sort of things. And I think that's going to be an interesting battle because I'm linking the two questions together about the attacking element as well. You know, we're facing a goalkeeper in Donnarumma who is fantastic at the aerial ball. You know, he dominates his box, comes out and claims the ball. So we've got a strength in terms of headed goals, you know, in getting the ball into the box, etc. But we're facing a goalkeeper who's incredibly dominant as well. So it is going to be, again, it's going to be fine margins. But I'd be going for Saka just for that ability to cross the ball.
Are you the same, Holly? Saka. Do you agree? Yeah.
I think, yeah, I do. But I feel like Saka kind of went a little bit unnoticed in like the first 20 minutes of the semi-final, and I think he kind of had a bit of a nervous start. And I think Southgate said that as well. This is a final, and we've all said he's a young player, and that's great for the unpredictability. But it's a lot of pressure, and I'm hoping he just kind of like is that kind of age and that mentality to not even kind of dwell on it. Like I feel like it's that kind of a good age to just kind of go for it, enjoy it, and relax. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like Sancho may be a bit of a safer bet, more experience, but they're still very young, and I think Saka has kind of got a bit of a better skill set for that kind of game.
Yeah. Something you got to consider about Saka as well is I'm almost certain that he made his Premier League debut last season as left back.
Yeah, he was left back.
Yeah, look how much he's come on like within a season. He's playing right wing now.
He literally couldn't stay at left back.
He's pretty much first choice for England.
Yeah,
I think a player like that is just high on confidence at the minute, and I do feel like as well in a lot of the Arsenal games I have watched, he seems pretty unfazed by it. Or do you know what I mean? And even for England, he can sort of live up to that sort of expectation of him. I do think Bellingham's got that in him as well, but that's a different story for a different day.
Yeah, I was going to go on to our team then. I'm just going to bring in a question from Mitch, who's been on the channel a few times, and it's more of a statement. I haven't really thought of this way, that we control possession really well and move teams around the pitch. And Spain sort of did the same to Italy, didn't they? He says that Italy looked like they were blowing after sort of the hour mark. I've not really thought of that. I mean, we don't pass the ball as much as Spain, obviously, but it did get to the point where I was very surprised Italy even got out for Chiesa to score the first goal. I was surprised because they were pinned back massively. Do you think that could be a factor, the way we control possession?
Well, if I throw some stats in there as well to kind of back up what's being said, I mean, comparing the two teams, in terms of distance covered, Italy average 122 kilometres, I think, an average per game, where England are 110. So I think that just shows how hard they've been having to work during games in terms of getting the ball in. And that also reflects, I think, in ball recoveries. They're an average of something like 41 to 42 ball recoveries per game, where England are down to 37. So I think England have been more effective with the ball. They've been retaining possession far more. But they haven't had to necessarily been working quite so hard in terms of covering the distance, because they've been making, going back to that thing that you say right from, under sevens, under eights football, you let the ball do the work. And I think England have been doing that fantastically well. And so I hope that we're going to be seeing a final where England can maintain that possession. And I think going back to that 3 minutes of England retaining the ball, we're at 88% passing accuracy, whereas Italy are at 86. So I think we're going into there with an awful lot of confidence in our own skill set. And I do hope that we're able to kind of keep that approach going and see Italy tire out, and then punish them with probably, a cross into the box, a big header. I'll take 1-0. That sounds good enough to me.
Yeah, the only thing I would possibly say about the possession game is we saw the loose pass, for example, from Kyle Walker against Ukraine. That's against Italy. It's probably a goal. That's the only thing that worries me a little bit. But as you say,
gotta hope all that's out of the system now, though, aren't you? As well, I think a point that needs covering as well is the fact that we did concede. Because I know it sounds daft, but I'm kind of glad we did concede, because I was sort of saying on the way to town, it'll be interesting to see if we do concede, if we sort of crumble under that pressure of not conceding. It did look a little bit shaky after we did concede, but then we sort of got grips on the game and showed our quality. So for me, it was quite assuring to see that. So it's almost sort of good that we did concede in a way.
Yeah, but I think also for me it was, I know there's been a lot been said about Pickford, and I'll try not to go on a rant. I've been trying to stop myself from doing this, but the one thing that I'll say, because I didn't hold him responsible for the goal at all, and I was a goalkeeper, I suppose, as well. So I'm a card-carrying member of the Goalkeepers Union still. But how well did he recover? So even if he had that doubt within himself, because he was a fingertip away from it, even if he had that bit about himself that he felt he should have done better, second half he came out and dominated his box, came out and punched, came out and claimed some pretty difficult balls as well. So I think you're absolutely right, George, in terms of, glad that he conceded, but also I was glad to see Pickford pick himself back up and be able to do it. Because obviously I'm sure he'd have been disappointed in himself that he wasn't able to pull off a save, because he's been pulling off saves all the way through the tournament and deservedly wins Golden Glove and beat Gordon Banks' clean sheet record. So he leaves this tournament already with his head held high. But to see his ability to recover from that was fantastic. Yeah,
he's the most passionate player on the pitch for me as well, in terms of wanting to play for England. He absolutely thrives off it, doesn't he? And we saw that all the way back from the World Cup. Now we'll go on to our team. Usually myself and George choose a team and then put it on the screen. We're gonna build it together because it's the final. Now I can assure any Notts fans that are watching, this is going to be better than a certain Mr. Harley's team, in which he included a goalkeeper that's not even in the squad anymore, went out through injury. Truly woeful team that he put out. He wanted to change it all.
He's an inspirational guy, isn't he?
Well, let's just say thank God he's not in charge of a football club anymore. Well, our football club anyway. I don't know if he's still working at lower league, but we'll leave it there. So we'll go for our team then. In goal, all agree? Pickford.
Yeah,
pretty much just said it.
Yeah. Right back.
Good question.
Walker.
Yeah, fantastic player. Yeah.
Formation though, we stick in the same 4-2-3-1.
Yeah, 4-2-3-1, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll go Pickford and Walker. Centre backs have got to stay the same for me. Maguire and Stones.
Yep.
Stones impressed me so much. Yeah. Left back. I've already said how good he's been. Sure. So that sort of picks itself. That's nice and easy. We then go on to two in midfield. Now,
Rice and Phillips.
For me, it's Rice and Phillips.
I won't change him. Yeah,
you can't
change him.
Yeah, I wouldn't change him either. Like I said, I do think Henderson brings a lot and could bring a lot in. And I think if it goes the way that we want to do, bring him on by all means and steady the ship that way. But yeah, they've done nothing to be taken out.
No, definitely not. I do see what people are saying about Henderson. I really get it. Champions League trophy under his belt. Very good player. George, you've already said how good he was when he came on. And he could be that again. You know, if we need him to come on and do what he did, he can. But it's unbelievable that I think as the team was announced 4.5 weeks ago, George, we wrote down who we weren't sure about. And we weren't sure whether we would have kept Phillips in the squad, were we? And
proven wrong again.
Honestly.
We look like fools. What do we know?
What do we know? Right. We then go to the 3 behind the striker. This is where it could change a little bit.
Easy one is Sterling.
Sterling. So he's been playing mostly on the left, hasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll go Sterling on the left. Agree with that?
Yeah.
Central.
Yeah.
I'm going Mount.
Yeah, I'd agree. Mount. Like I say, I think it's all down. If we're ball possession, let's keep a ball player in there, someone who's going to keep the ball safe. Yeah.
What are you thinking, Holly? Not Grealish. You're thinking Grealish?
I think Mount's. I'm a massive Grealish fan, obviously, but I think Mount is your safe bet. I think he works well with Phillips and Rice behind him, and I think Jack Grealish is your bit of magic that you bring on as a fresh legs to scare them if they are blowing, like that kind of question said. So yeah, even though I want to put Jack there, I think Mount. Yeah.
Yeah, Mount. And then we go to the right-hand side. We sort of said who Italy would prefer to play. We sort of said, I'm going to say it's a mass. I'm swaying on what Holly's saying and just how big this game is for a player like Saka. Who do you think, George?
I think Saka. I mean, Sancho is obviously a great player. Like that 3 there is the hardest place to pick on the pitch, isn't it? But I just think you have to play Saka. Keep it the same. What are you thinking?
Well,
you thinking Sancho?
If you don't...
You go, Holly. I'm still thinking.
Sorry. I was saying, if you don't start Saka, it's very hard to bring him on as a sub in that kind of game, because you don't know how it's going to go, and bringing him on maybe like the task 10 or under the extra time, if it goes to extra time, is a lot more pressure than starting, I think. So I'd rather start him than maybe not have him as an option for a sub if that kind of mentality of the game changes. And I don't know. I'm hoping he's just going to be unfazed by it all. But at 18, what is he, 18, 19? It's a big thing. It's huge.
It's massive, isn't it? I really, really like Sancho. I think he's unbelievable. I'm going to go Saka as well. I think, like Holly swayed me there. Imagine that you're tired at the end of the game and Jadon Sancho, who's barely played a game this tournament, will be so fresh. Him coming on would scare you. Colin, did you give your choice?
Yeah, I would go with Saka too. I think, like I say, it's that crossing ability for me. You know, who do I want putting the ball in the box? And I'll go for Saka really, because I think he'll get into those kind of naturally wide positions in order to do it. And like I say, the accuracy is going to have to be there because they're up against a pretty capable goalkeeper as well. So fingers crossed he can do it. But like I say, credit to him, that cutback that he managed to do for the goal was fantastic as well. And belied, I mean, like I say, 18, 19 years old to do that and on the stage that he did, unbelievable.
Yeah, one thing while we're talking about Saka and who he's going to be up against, I'm thinking Spinazzola is out. For me, that is, as bad as it is for him, that is incredible for England. I don't know if anyone saw how he was playing before his injury. He was frightening. He was Luke Shaw and then some. Like, unbelievable. So I don't know who's been playing left back for Italy, but I know they're not the paciest at fullback. I know that. So that could come into play. And then striker, it's Kane, isn't it?
Yeah. No doubt.
It's Harry Kane. Absolutely no doubt. George, you still saying he's going to win the Golden Boot?
No.
No. You were pretty big on it.
Yeah, no, I was. But I just can't see this being a game that's going to have lots of goals in it.
So I'll line up.
Assist away. Sorry.
Possibly.
Is he a goal and assist away from,
I think yes, it might be level or it might be one behind. Maybe, not sure. There's our lineup. We've just come up with it together. Is that exactly the same as What started the
Yeah.
last one? Yeah.
Same, yeah.
I mean, but yeah, there were some talking points. I could have just said let's keep it the same, but yeah, we've talked about a few positions there. Right, to end the video, predictions. So, Colin, we'll let you go first. Prediction for the Euro 2020 final, which England are in. Can't believe I'm saying that.
I'm going to go 2-1. 2-1 England. Like I say, I think it's going to be fascinating for me to watch, like I say, the two keepers. And I think, like I say, it's going to really test their skill sets. Italy don't score headed goals. It's all going to be low or from long distance, from range. So that's going to be down to Pickford to deal with. But I think, like I say, we're scoring a lot of headed goals. Donnarumma dominates his box, so that's going to be an interesting one as well. But yeah, I'll say 2-1.
Fair as all. George?
As you can see on screen, I've gone Italy 0, England 1. I think it's going to be one of those games where both teams are a little bit anxious, I think England are going to control possession a little bit better than Italy. And I think Italy will tire towards the end of the game, and that's where Sterling will nick a goal to bring it home.
Fair enough. Sterling, to win the tournament for England, won't be a more deserving player. I'm going to go Italy 2, England 3, Kane and Sterling 2. I think what you said, George, I think it will be tiring. It's not just a tournament that's in normal times, is it? We've gone through an incredibly long season and players are tiring. You saw Denmark out on their feet against England. Italy tired against Spain. I think tiredness will play into it, and I think we've got the stronger subs. But I can just see it going a little bit out of the window. I think, like you say, Holly, it's going to be a chess match. I do think for some parts of the game it will be very tactical, but in the end, I think it's just going to come down to who's got that energy and can get that goal. And the way we pushed against Denmark, even if we didn't get the penalty, I'm convinced we would have got a goal in extra time. Holly, your prediction for the game?
Yeah. Mine's very similar to yours. I think it'll be 3-2 England. I know that's kind of like 5 goals, a lot of goals, but it's quite specific this is. I think it'll be 2-2 at full time, and I think we will win it in extra time to make it 3-2. And I'm saying that because we've got the home crowd advantage, and if it has been like kind of a stalemate game where kind of we cancel each other out with a goal and then someone retains possession for a long period of time, the fans will I feel like they'll just carry them home and they'll push them, even if they're like, I don't think we'll run out of energy because I think we've got some great athletes in our squad. But I think that home advantage being at Wembley, I think it would just push England even further.
I cannot imagine the scenes if England win the tournament. I actually can't believe it. I get goosebumps thinking about it. National holiday, week off, whatever.
Yeah. I've got a question for you though, Tom.
Go on then.
Are you going to be dyeing your hair blonde?
No way.
I'm toying with it. It depends. Yeah, I think I might do it.
You know, if you got the straightness,
I might do it.
If you got the straightness to the front of that, you would look like Foden. Have a shave, you get the straightness. I'm sure you sent a message to our group chat saying if England win, you're getting a tattoo. I'm sure you said that.
Probably mate. Yeah.
I'll dig the message out.
I'll do it all. I'll be that
Foden
generic
hair.
England fan. I'll have Foden here and I'll have a Euros tattoo.
Oh no.
I can actually see it. Right, that's on the record. You're gonna have
I'll do it. Honestly, I'll say it on record now. If England win, I'll dye my hair blonde.
You sit.
No,
honestly, yeah.
And a tattoo.
And a tattoo, but Tom can pay for it.
Honestly, we'll do a GoFundMe or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
No. We can't. Oh, fair enough. Yeah, do that then. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So hopefully,
I'm down for that.
Yeah, hopefully next time we do a Knots video, you've got blonde hair and a tattoo. Love it.
I mean, if we're all right, we've all predicted a win there, so it looks like I will have blonde hair and a tattoo.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. It would be fantastic. It would be good. Holly and Colin, thank you so much for joining us. It's been unbelievable doing a preview for a major tournament final for England. We've all predicted a win. Let's hope we can go out there and get it. And Monday's just going to be a blur. So thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.